Hi there, welcome to this tutorial. My name is Emmanuel. In this tutorial, we are going to be creating a jotter. The sample of the jotter we'll be creating is what we have on our screen here. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is to create our working canvas. To do that, let's create a default canvas by clicking on the default option here. The next thing we want to do is to remove the text layer, and then we'll head on to the delete icon here and we'll delete the text layer. So the next thing we want to do is to change the size of our screen. Now our jotter is going to be an A4 size on landscape mode because we are going to have front and back, and then that is half of A4, which is an A5, and then an A5 plus an A5 is an A4. So we are going to create an A4 size on a landscape mode. So we'll head on to the three dots on the top right corner of our phone, and then we'll come to image size. And then by default, Pixellap measures in pixels. So the width of our jotter is going to be 3508, and the height is going to be 2480. So we'll click on OK, and this is our A4 size on landscape. So the next thing we want to do is to divide our screen into two to have it in two equal parts, where we'll be creating the front separately and the back separately. So click on the plus icon and we'll add a shape and we'll drag it all the way, and then we'll reduce it to make it something thin, very thin, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to change the color of our shape. So we'll select the shape option, and then we'll change our color from white to black, and then we'll click on OK. Then we'll change the position and we'll adjust it to the center vertically and to the center horizontally. I will click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to start creating our design, and then the first thing we want to do is to create our background. Keep in mind that the background we are creating is just for the front side of our jotter. So to do that, we'll head on to the plus icon and we'll add a shape from our gallery. Then we'll drag it all the way, and then we'll position it, then we'll drop it here. So if you notice, um, our shape is contesting with the black line that we have, which serves as our divider. So we'll select our shape and we'll come to the option to back here. I will send the shape to back to make our line visible. The next thing we want to do is to add our subject who will serve as a background, but we'll be having a background over our subject. So we'll add a texture, and the texture is going to be one of the photos of our subject. So we'll add this photo. I've removed the background, so we'll scale it like this, adjust it a bit like this, and then we'll click on OK, and we have it here nicely. So we'll check. So the next thing we want to create is the bluish background that we have. Okay, so we'll head on the plus icon, and then we'll select from our gallery, and then we'll search to locate the blue background that we have. So we'll check. Okay, I'll go to gallery, and then I'll check my album, and then I'll scroll down and I'll come to background here. I have it here, and I'll select it. So I'll adjust it because I want it somewhere around here, and I'll click on OK to have it. So I'll bring it to the position, and I'll drag it all the way, and then I'll position it here. So I'll select it also, and then I'll select my layer, and I'll bring it behind my separator because I don't want it to be competing with my separator. So I'll bring it behind like this, and then I think it's okay. So the next thing I want to do is to reduce the opacity a bit so that we can be seeing our subject behind. So I'll reduce the opacity down to 95%. To 95%. Yes, and I think this is okay for me. So the next thing I want to do is to lock my background so that I can put it in place to avoid movement when creating my designs. So I'll head on to the layer here and then I'll click the lock icon to lock my background. So the next thing I want to do is to add the design, the lace design that we have on top of our our jotter. So we'll head on to the plus icon and we'll go to our gallery and then we'll locate the icon here. So we want to flip it vertically. So we'll flip it vertically and then we have it like this. So we'll adjust it to make it easier for us to work with. So adjust it like this and then we'll accept and we have it this way. So we want to reduce it a bit and then we'll have it here. So but to position it properly, let's just zoom. So we'll click on the zoom icon and then we'll zoom our screen and then we'll be able to work on it properly. So we'll select it and then we'll reduce the size a bit and then we can have it somewhere here neatly. So I think this is fine for now. If there's any adjustment we can do it later, but I want to rotate it a bit. And then I think this is okay. So the next thing I want to do is to bring in the main subject, right? So I head on to the plus icon and then from the gallery and then I'll select the main subject. I have it here, so I'll adjust it a bit like this and then I'll adjust it a bit. I've worked on the background to remove the background, so I'm going to flip it because I want the lady to go to the other side. So I'll flip it this way and then I think it's okay. So I'll click on okay. Now that we have our subject on our screen, we're going to scale down a bit to reduce the size and then we'll try to place it somewhere around here. Place it somewhere around here, but let's scale it a bit to increase the size and we'll place it somewhere around here. So but we want to work on the down edge of our subject to have a blur effect to make it look as if the subject is coming out from the background. So with our subject selected, we'll try to edit the picture. We'll try to edit the picture by erasing the bottom side of our subject. So increase the size of our brush and also increase the size of the blur effect and we'll erase it this way. And I think this is okay and then we'll check and then we have it neatly this way. So we'll drag it down a bit and then we'll have it this way. So let's zoom out so that we can see it properly. So we'll zoom out to 100. I think this is okay. So check. So the next thing we want to do is to add the text on top, which is together forever. So we'll head on to the plus icon here and then we'll click on text and then we'll drag it all the way and we'll click to edit the text. So we'll type the text together and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to change the font, and we'll select the text option here, and then we'll come down to font, and then we'll change the font to this, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to increase the size of the font a bit. So we'll be increasing the size. We'll increase it to, let's see, 45, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to change the color of the text from white to red, and then we'll click on OK, and then we'll add a stroke to our text. So we'll add a stroke and we'll give it a white effect. So we'll increase the stroke a bit to somewhere around 8, and I think 8 is fine for now. So let's take our subject down a bit, and then we'll place our text like this. So the next thing is to add forever under. So head to the text icon, and then we'll add edit, and then we'll add forever, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to change the font. So select, and then we'll change the font. So I'll be using a font that is called Taken by Vulture. It's a font that I installed. So if you want to get the font, you just Google it, Taken by Vulture. It's a free font. So we'll select it, and then we'll OK, and then we'll increase the size of the font a bit, increase it a bit, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to increase the line spacing between the text. So we'll increase the spacing a bit between the text. So we increase it a bit like this. I think 4 is okay. So we'll check, and then we'll drag it this way all the way here, and then we'll have it somewhere here. But I think the size is a bit big, so we'll reduce it a bit. Reduce it a bit, and then it's okay. But let's zoom in so that we'll see our work properly. Okay, want to place it somewhere here neatly, and then that's fine. So we want to take our subject up a bit, and then we'll scale it down a bit to reduce the size because it's a bit big. So we'll place it here, and then I think this is fine. So the next thing we want to do is to add the names of our subject. So we'll add a text, and then we'll drag it all the way, and we'll type the name of our subject, and we have Mbuka. Click on OK, and then we'll change the font style. We'll be using a default font on Pixellap, and then we'll change the style to this, and then we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to increase the size of our text. So increase it to 45, and then we'll click OK. The next thing we want to do is to change the color of our font, but I don't want to use a color here, so I'll use a texture that I have on my phone to give it a blue kind of color. The texture I'll be using is this. So I'll select the texture from somewhere here, and then I'll click on OK, and you can see that it has been applied on our text, and I'll check. So the next thing I want to do is to change the is to give it a stroke, a white stroke. So I'll change the color from black to white, and then I'll increase it a bit to 6, and then I'll click on OK. So the next thing I want to do is to duplicate it to write the second name. So I'll select it, and then I'll click on copy to copy it. I'll drag it downwardly and tap on it to write the second name, Bridget. And I have it like this. So the next thing I want to do is to create the "and," to add the "and" there. So I'll add a cycle, and then I'll add a shape. I'll change it from a square to a cycle, and then I'll adjust it all the way. I think I'll adjust it all the way, and then I'll click on OK. So I'll drag it and bring it downwardly like this, and I'll adjust it again. So I'll duplicate this text again, and then I'll change it from Bridget, and I'll type Anne. Click on OK. Then I'll remove the stroke effect on the text. Remove the stroke effect, and then I'll also delete the texture of the text. So I'll select the texture and then delete it. So what I want to do is to change the color from white to orange. Change it from white to orange, and then I will use this positioning option to position my text on the circle. So I'll position it on the circle this way, like this, and I think I'll position it, I'll reduce the move of the position, and I'll position it this way, and then I think it's fine. So the next thing I want to do is to group the "and" and the circle together. So I'll select the two together, and then I'll group them. Click on OK, and they are now together. So I can scale it up or reduce it downward a little bit, and that's OK. So let me zoom in to position this properly. So I will drag this name down a bit, and then I'll drag my "and" sign beside this, and I'll position this other one somewhere here, and I think this is okay. But if you notice, this Bridget, the T is having like a kind of cut effect. So to fix that, we'll select it, and then we'll go and look for padding, text padding. So increase the padding of the text. So increase the padding to the right like this. I'll click on OK, and as you can see, that has been fixed. So the next thing we want to do is to lock our layers to keep them in place. So all the new layers, will lock them to keep them in place to avoid movement when working. So we'll lock them and keep them in place. So let's click on the zoom icon, and we'll zoom out a bit. So the next thing we want to do is to add the date, and to add the date we're going to add a shape. And then we'll scale it down like this, and then we'll adjust the radius to give us this effect. Let's adjust the radius down a bit, and then we'll have it at 34, and we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to reduce the size of the shape a bit, and then we'll place it here, and then we'll select the shape option and we'll send it to back. Let's send it behind our subject. So let's hold it and drag it downward, and it is behind our subject. And then we'll change the color from white to red. So change the color from white to red, and we'll click on OK. The next thing we want to do is to duplicate the shape. So with the shape selected, you click on copy, and then we'll change the color of the one we copied, and then we'll change it from red to yellow. We'll change it from red to yellow, and then we'll place it over here like this, and then click on OK. We'll go down to our layer again, and then we'll drag it down. Drag it down below our subject, and then I think it's perfect. So the next thing we want to do is to give this shape a shadow effect. So with the shape selected, we'll head down to our options, and then we'll select shadow, and we'll enable the shadow, but we'll reduce the blur radius downward a bit to 8, and we'll click on OK. So I think this is perfect. So the next thing we want to do is to group the two layers together. So we'll select the two layers, and then we'll merge them together. So they have been meshed together. So let's take it down below our subject so that it doesn't cover our subject. So we have it here. I can reduce it a bit like this, and then we'll place it here neatly. And yeah, so the next thing we want to do is to add the date, and this wedding will be happening on the 30th of April 2022. So let's add it, 30th. Okay. So click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to bring it downward a bit, and then we'll change the font. Select the font option, and then we'll change the font to this, and then we'll click on OK, and then we'll change the color from white to black. Change the color from white to black, and we'll click on OK, and then we'll reduce the size of the font. Reduce the size to 25. I think 25 is a bit big, so reduce it down to 20. Reduce it down to 20, and then we'll check. So it's a bit difficult for us to align it, so let's use this positioning option. Let's reduce the movement by 2px, and then we'll adjust it neatly like this, and we'll click on OK. So the next thing we want to do is to give it an opacity, to give it a stroke, sorry. So we'll give it a stroke, and the color of our stroke is going to be white. So we'll give it a white color stroke, and we'll increase the size of our stroke to, we'll increase the stroke to 6, and then I think it's okay. So let's adjust it a bit. Let's adjust it a bit away from our subject. So reduce the movement to 1px, and then we'll adjust it like this, and I think this is okay. So the next thing we want to do is to add the yellow line behind our subject. So the reason we're adding the yellow line behind our subject is to create a balance using text, using colors, sorry. So we're creating a balance using color. So we'll just create this shape like this, and then we'll drag it here, reduce the width, and then we'll drag it somewhere here, and we'll click on OK. So we want to select this shape option, and we'll send it to back. Sometimes if you're sending to back and it is hiding, it means it is our subject has been locked, or the object we are sending to back has been locked. So sometimes it will just hide it for you. So to send it to back, you can still click on the layer option up here, and then you select it, and you take it below the layer you want to send to back. And in this case, we are sending it behind our subject, so we'll drop it here. You can just drop it here, and then you can see it is behind our subject. And then we'll change the color from white to yellow. So we are changing the color from white to yellow, and we'll shift it a bit, and then I think this is perfect. So the next thing we want to do is to add happy married life to the bottom of our subject. So click on the plus icon, and we'll add the text, and we drag it below, and we'll click on the text, and we'll type happy marriage life, and then we'll click on OK. So we want to take it up a bit and make some adjustment to the text. So the first thing we want to do is to reduce the size of our text. So we'll select the text option, and then we'll come to size, and then we'll reduce the size to 15 pixels, and we'll click on OK. And the next thing we want to do is to increase the line spacing between the text. So increase the line spacing. So we'll select it, and then we'll increase it to, let's say, 10 pixels. So we'll drag it. 10 is a bit small, so let's increase it to, let's say, 30 pixels, and we'll adjust it to fit. And then we'll reduce the size a bit. Because we don't want it to look all that big. So reduce the size from to 13. So we'll drag it, and then we'll position it here neatly, and then we'll place it. Yes, so the next thing we want to add is the courtesy, right? Next thing we want to add is the courtesy. So add a shape. We'll create a shape. We'll drag it all the way down. We'll place it here. We can adjust it. Let's use the positioning option to adjust the shape downward. So adjust it, and then place it somewhere here. I'll click on OK. So the courtesy is going to be friends. So let's add a text, and then we'll type courtesy. Friends. So click on OK, and then we'll select the text option, and then we'll change the color from white to red, and then we'll change the size down to 12 pixels, and then we'll bring it all the way. Now click on OK. So we want to increase the line spacing as well. So click on the line spacing, and then we'll increase it to somewhere about 15. I'll click on OK. So we'll select our shape, and then we'll adjust it a bit, and then we'll adjust it, and then we'll change the color from white to yellow. So we'll change it from white to yellow, and we'll have it like this, and we'll check. So we use this relative option to position it downward. So we'll just bring it down like this, and then it's okay. So we'll also use the relative option to position our text downward. So we'll bring it downward like this. Let's reduce the movement, and I'll bring it downwards like this. And I think it is okay like this. So but I would like to reduce the radius of this square here. So I'll select the square, and then I'll select the shape option and then edit. So I'll reduce the radius, to about 10, 15. 15 is okay, and I'll reduce the size again. So I'll use the positioning option to place it properly. Let me reduce the movement. Let me try to balance it. So I would like to match this this layer together with the courtesy layer. So I'll match these two together to make the movement easier for me, because I'm sure I won't want to edit it again. So I'll merge the two together, and I'll bring it all the way like this. So we're going to zoom out back to 100, and that's it. We're almost done. So the next thing we want to do is to select this layer here, and then we'll unlock it, and then we'll edit it to change the opacity reduce the opacity a bit to, let's say, 80. Reduce the opacity to 80. And I think it's looking nice. So that is all for the front cover. I just noticed something. Let's just work on it. Let's adjust these names a bit. Let's adjust the names a bit. Let's zoom in. Yeah, so adjust the names a bit. Adjust this way. Adjust this too this way. And also adjust this. Let me use the positioning option to adjust this circle. So I think this is perfect. So I'll just merge these layers together. So I'll merge them together. And they are now together. So let me just zoom out to 100. And that is it. We are done with the front cover of our jotter. So the next thing we're going to be creating is the back cover of the jotter. So the next thing we'll be creating is going to be the back cover of our jotter. So let's lock this layer to keep them in place so that they don't move while we are working. Let's lock them to keep them all in place. So we're done locking them. So the next thing we want to do is to create the back of our jotter. So the next thing we want to do is to add a shape. Click on the plus icon and we'll add a shape. Drag it all the way. And then we'll check. And then we want to change the positioning and send it to back. So it's behind our guide. So the next thing we want to do is to add a background to this layer here. So we'll select the layer and select texture. And we'll select a texture. And then I have a background I downloaded from Google on my phone. So that's what I'm going to be using. I come down to album and then head down to my layers, and here is it. So I'll be using this. So I have it here and I check OK. So I'll drag it down a bit. So the next thing is I want to create a yellowish line behind a yellow line behind this blue background and the next background on top. So I'll add the shape and then place it this way, and I'll check and I'll send it to back as well. So I send to back, and I'll select it and I'll change the color from white to yellow. From white to yellow, and I'll click on OK. So the next background I'll be having, which is the last one, is a kind of milk background. So I'll duplicate this and then I'll place it on top here like this, and I will change the color from yellow to milk. And I'll check and I'll send it to back. Yes, and I have it placed neatly like this. So the next thing we want to add is to add another background where we'll be adding the pictures of our subject. So add this like this, and we'll scale it all the way, scale it downward, scale it to the left, and then the next thing I want to do is to change the color. So we'll be changing the color from white to a kind of navy blue. So we'll select the shape and then we'll come down to color here and we'll check. So we'll use this and then take it up a bit and then we'll check. So the next thing we'll be doing is to add some shapes where we'll be inserting the pictures of our subject. So we'll have this and then we'll check and then we'll copy to duplicate the layer. So we'll have another one like this, but I think this is a bit big, so I'll delete it and then reduce this a bit. So I'll copy to have another one and I'll copy to have the third one. So I'll try to place them evenly. So I would like to add a guide so that it will enable me to place my shapes properly. So I've placed my guide and then I'll select my shape and use the positioning option, and then I'll place it, and then I'll select the second one, positioning. I'll reduce it and then try to place it, and then the third one, positioning, and then I'll try to place it, and I think it's perfect. So the next thing I want to do is to add my subject, and then I'll add texture, I'll locate the pictures from my phone, gallery, and then I have this, so I'll be adding this. I'll reduce it down a bit and I'll click OK. So I have the first one, so I'll select the second one, texture, and I'll go to my gallery and then I'll locate the second picture, and I'll add it. So I'll select the third one and then texture, and I'll go to my gallery. And I'll add this one like this. So we'll just duplicate these ones and add them downward. So I'll copy and then I'll bring this one here. So let me zoom in to have a proper look at the whole thing. So I'll duplicate this. And I'll duplicate this as well. And then I'll place it neatly. And that's all. So I'll remove my guide. So the next thing I want to add is thanks for coming. So I'll click on the text icon and then I'll type the layer, thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, and I'll click on OK. So the next thing I want to do is to change the color from a white to a red. So I'll select the text layer, select the color, and then I change it. So next off is to change the font. So I'll change the font to this, and then I'll click on OK, and then I'll reduce the size. I'll reduce it to 20px. I think it's fine. So let me zoom out a bit. Yes. So the next thing is to add the shape on top where we have the right top fit inside. So we'll go to our gallery and then we'll select the circular shape, which is this one, and then we'll crop it a bit. I've removed the background for this as well, and then we'll click on OK. So we'll scale it down all the way, and then we'll add it somewhere here. So let's reduce the size of this to balance it, and then I would like to group them together. Just so they are in place, but I have to be sure of the layer I am grouping. So I think this is it. So I'll group them together, and then I'll group. So I have them together. So I can take it downward a bit. So I'll add a white circle to this, but let me zoom in, and then I'll add a white circle. I'll send to back. I'll select the shape and then drag it all the way behind this, and then I'll check. I think it's looking nice, so I'll group them together. I'll group this and this together, and I group, then I go back, and then let me zoom out so that I can see what I'm doing perfectly. So I'll select the text and bring it to front. I'll drag the text to the front of this layer, and then I'll place it here. I'll use the positioning option to allow me position my text properly. So I'll position it like this. I would like to reduce the size a bit so that it will fit in to so I reduce it, and then I'll use the positioning option to position it well, like this. Yes. So the next thing I want to do is to add the name of the couples. So let me unlock the background so that I can be able to copy the names. So I'll select it, and then I copy, and I'll place it somewhere here. Let me group these two together so that I can move them together as well. I'll place the name. So we're almost done. The next thing we want to do is to add the name of the printers. Okay, I want to add the name of the printers. So I'm going to use Ematech Designs plus prints. Okay, so I'll reduce the size of the text to 12px, and then I'll bring it downward, and I'll change the color from white to red, and then I'll increase the spacing, increase the letter spacing to 10, adjust it, and then I'll use this positioning option to place it neatly. So I believe that is all. Our jotter is looking nice and fine. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please kindly leave a comment below, like, subscribe and share this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.